Hey everybody, hi, it's Becky from PowerToolsWithThread.com. Today I want to make the angel block from the Designs by JuJu Nativity Table Runner. We're going to make this little gal right here. And I know a lot of the times I use, or most of the time, I use my Brother Luminaire, which is down sewing machine row there a little bit, or I'll use my multi-needle. Well, today I wanted to do something a little bit different and kind of take you through how it works when you don't have one of those fancy machines. When I first started my embroidery journey, I started with a Brother Pt2-Nativity, and that was a wonderful little machine. The Pt800, it's exactly like that, but it just didn't have the color screen like the Pt800. So I started with something very similar to what this one is right here. This is the Brother NQ3700D. It's brand new on the market. It's very, very much like the NQ1600, 1700. That it has a max hoop size of a 6x10, and it's a really, really versatile machine. And this is the machine I have that I use in my motorhome. This is the one I travel with. And the 3700 is a sewing and embroidery combo. And a lot of you have told me that you have sewing and embroidery combos and you've only used the sewing part of it, and you've never brought out the embroidery arm, and you're not real sure what to do with it, and you're just kind of intimidated by it because you've never really experienced that. Well, I really want to encourage you to take it out, set it up, get a look at it, get a feel for it. You don't have to do anything with it. Get your book out, take a look, and just become familiar with your embroidery machine. They're really a lot easier than you think. So while this machine is a Brother, every embroidery machine, while they'll have different looks and different buttons, they all pretty much function the same. And regardless of the brand, like I said, the buttons may look different, but there are buttons on other brands of machines that do the same function that happen to have on a Brother. But I just want to take you through how I am going to change out this machine from being, I've got the sewing arm on it right now, the sewing arm, and over here I have the embroidery module, and I'm going to switch that up. The only thing I have done to this machine so far to get ready for this video was I just took off the low shank sewing, the J foot. In the Brother and Baby Lock world, these are the J feet, and the low shank adapter. It's got the one where you can press the little button and that comes off like that. It's an easy switch foot. And I did put on the embroidery foot, and on this machine the embroidery foot is a U foot, the letter U. Normal Brother embroidery machines that, like the Luminaire or the Quattro or the Dream machines, that would be the W foot. And that's the foot that has the little arm that will come up and kick out that jump thread, or at the end when it does the final trim, and that little arm will come up and kick that out. This machine doesn't have that little arm, but it does trim the threads underneath, and then the embroidery arm will move a little bit back and forth to release those threads so that they are cut properly. But this little embroidery foot that just doesn't have that arm. So this is the letter U foot, like T-U-V, the U, okay? If you have a sewing and embroidery combo, you need to change out the sewing part to the embroidery arm, or attach the embroidery arm, before you ever turn on the machine. Most machines will go through an initialization process, and that's where the screen will light up, you touch OK, or you touch the screen in some way to activate it, and then the arm on the embroidery machine is going to go through its initial move out and move back and get set to where it knows it wants to start any design. If you have the sewing arm on there and you turn the machine on, the machine doesn't recognize the embroidery arm and it thinks it's going to sew. So it's important, most embroidery machines, if you have a combo, this is the arm right here, and it's got a little set of pegs computer pins in here. You need to have these attached to the machine before you turn it on so that it knows it needs to initialize itself as an embroidery machine, and you'll get the embroidery menu on your screen instead of the sewing menu. So that's just a little tip. If you have the machine turned on and you pull the sewing arm off, the free arm, if you pull the free arm off and you put the embroidery module on, your machine might pop up an error and it's going to tell you to turn it off and turn it back on. That's perfectly fine too. You don't break anything when you do that. So I'm just going to take you through my process to do what I do to get started, and then we're going to go through the buttons on this little machine, and I'll show you that even though it doesn't have all the bells and whistles of the Luminaire or the multi-needle, it's still a fabulous little machine. I just love this thing, and it's perfect for a travel machine because it's compact and it does everything that I want it to do. Behind the machine, I have my thread tree right here, and I have all of my thread colors already chosen. The regular embroidery threads, they are the new exquisite thread line from Designs and Machine Embroidery. And then this is a King Star metallic gold. This is going to be for her halo. And this is also from Designs and Machine Embroidery. I will link to all of these things below. It's just very handy to have all your threads ready to go. It makes life so much easier so that you're not stopping in the middle and going and hunting for the right color of thread. I also have my 6x10 hoop. It has been hooped with a no-show poly mesh. Sometimes you'll see it called a cutaway mesh. That just means you can't tear it away, and you'll have to trim this up once you get the block done. This is the 6x10 hoop. I am making the 6x10 angel, and this machine has a regular sidearm like most Brother embroidery machines do, instead of how it slides in on the multi-needle. So I'm all ready to go with this. When you are hooping, there will be a little divot. I know on Brother machines, and probably most machines as well, there will be some kind of divot at the top. This one has a little in notch, and then the inner hoop ring has a little outie. And that little knob fits in that little notch. And then what I normally do is I will press it in at the top and then smooth it all out and then tighten it at the bottom. Okay, so it's just very simple to go ahead and hoop these. You want to hoop that sounds like that, beating of the drum, okay? You don't necessarily have to bounce a nickel off of it, but you do want it so it doesn't have any drag lines. What this has in it is fold lines. This is a scrap I had folded up in the bottom of a bag somewhere. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put on the embroidery arm. It's so simple to do. Let me show you how. So I'm just going to pull off the free arm, just like you would when you're sewing. And inside of the free arm on this machine, there is a little tray that has all of your little accessories in it that you might need. It has, you know, it's got your little feet, everything in here. I keep a spool of thread in here. I keep some extra bobbins in here that are filled. And when I take off the sewing foot, I'm going to put it back in here so that it doesn't grow legs and walk around my sewing room. You know how they can do that, right? And then you're looking for it. So I put everything away so I don't have to spend time looking for something. And I'm just going to lock it all up in there. And then I'm going to take the embroidery arm and I'm just going to slide it on. And I hold the machine over here on this side, and I'm going to just push over here with my left hand and just push it in, line up this piece right here. I'm going to line that up with the hole where it needs to go, and then push it in until it clicks. I heard a spring go ta-ting. That means it's on good. Now I'm going to turn on the machine. And when the machine initializes, it's recognizing that the embroidery arm is on. So I'm going to, isn't that a big, pretty screen? Look at that, I love it. I'm going to touch this. Here is the initialization screen. The carriage of the embroidery unit will move. Keep your hands away from the carriage. I'm going to touch OK. So that's why normally when I turn this on as a sewing machine, I'm going to see all of the sewing stitches and stuff. So it knows we want to embroider. And that's how simple that is. And I'm going to lift this up. Normally when you're embroidering, you don't want to have this on. This is kind of in the way, and you can just give this a little push to pop that pin out of the lid, and it will come right off just like that. My maintenance guy Jason told me about that little trick. So I'm going to pull my tree stand up a little bit closer, and you just want to make sure when you have, if you're using a tree stand like I am, let me get in here where you can see this. Here is, this little piece right here holds another set of spools. I don't need that tray on there. You want to make sure that the neck of the tree stand is far enough over behind the machine that the hoop, as it travels around, and what you can do is push this all the way over as far as it can go in this part of the machine right here, and just kind of make it go back and forth and make sure it doesn't touch your tree stand. There. So now this can travel the full length forward. It's really only going to go to about here. I don't think it goes any farther than that. But this can go all the way here, and it's not going to touch the tree stand, and it can go all the way over, and it's not going to touch. So that's a real good spot right back there, snugged up behind the body of the machine. And that way you know it's not going to hit anything. So I do want to make sure I have enough bobbin in there, and I do not. This is 144 pre-wound bobbins for embroidery machine, size A156. I'll hold that real still so you can take a look at that. This box of bobbins is in my Amazon store. And if you are using pre-wound bobbins, they generally are a little bit fuller and a little bit tighter than a bobbin that you might wind yourself. Okay, so here it is. And because of that, Brother recommends that you use, I'm going to pop this open, pop that little tray, that you use the bobbin case with the purple dot. I'm going to I'll just pop this out, show you guys. There's a purple dot in the bottom of that bobbin case. This is the bobbin case for pre-wounds. The other bobbin case will either not have a dot or it will have a green dot. I've got fuzz in there. I'll line the little white arrow with the white dot. Put that back on, get rid of that error message. I'm going to load my bobbin. It loads exactly like a sewing bobbin. They're identical. So the way you load the sewing bobbin is the same way you load the embroidery bobbin. There we go. I'm all good. And the very first stitch that's going to happen is going to be a dark blue, so I want to load the dark blue thread into my machine. So I'm going to pull my dark blue thread down. These are very easy to thread. Mine has a numbering system, and there are directional arrows telling you how to thread the machine. So I'm going to come in behind number 1, go around number 2, come around to the left and follow that arrow down. And then around 3, so we're going around the take-up lever. I'm going to put foot down, foot back up to open up that take-up lever. There's a little door that comes down right up here, and if it's closed and you can't get to it, just hit the foot up down and open up those tension discs. Make sure that's in the tension disc nice and tight. I'm at that little clip on 6. Your book should have a diagram on how to thread it, how to thread your machine. That's it right there. And this has the auto needle threader over here on the side. I don't have a thread button up here like I do on the Luminaire. So I'm going to press this button. You'll see the foot drop a little bit, and then it will thread the needle. Just like that. That's perfect. And sometimes it kind of makes a loop. You do not have to pull this out. It will knot itself up underneath when it does the design. So the machine is threaded, and now I need to retrieve the design. This is a Power Tools with Thread USB stick. We have them in pink and white in our store site, and I'll put a link to that below. I like to use these USB sticks. These are 4 gig USB, and they will work with machines that have been made in the last 10 years or so. Most machines don't like anything larger than a 4 gig, but this one is only 4 gig. So I transferred the design from my laptop to the USB, just like I showed in video number 1. I'm going to put it in the side of the machine, and this one flashes. When it flashes, it tells you that memory is being accessed and you don't want to remove it while it's flashing. But when the light is steady, it's fine and you can get to it and use it all you want. On nearly all Brother machines, you access the memory by touching the pocket. There's a little pocket button on the screen. So I'm going to touch the pocket for the memory, and it wants to know where do you want to get it from inside the machine, from a USB, or from wireless. I'm going to get it from the USB, and it's pulling it up, and there she is. If there's more than one design on here, you see how delete and set are not highlighted. Right now they're grayed out. You have to touch it, and then delete and set come up and highlight so that you can activate those buttons. If your design, and this is true of most embroidery machines, the computer brain on most embroidery machines is fairly small. So on some machines, and I would say most, if your design is inside of a folder on your USB, you may not be able to see the design. Most embroidery machines do not have the smarts to be able to dig down inside of folders on a USB stick. This one does, and it will, but this is a little bit more advanced machine and it's newer. So I know on my Pt2-Nativity and I think the Pt800, your designs need to be outside of a folder level at the very first access part of the USB stick. So now that she is highlighted, I'm going to hit set. So this screen that comes up, it's exactly like what I would see on the Luminaire or the multi-needle. This is where I can add, like if I wanted to add lettering, I can move, I can change the size, I can rotate it, I can delete it, I can change colors. I can do all basic editing in the machine on the design that the machine will allow me to do. But I don't want to do anything with this. I'm using it exactly as the digitizer created it. And so I'm just going to hit Edit End. And I'm finished with it. And here is where if you wanted to move it around in the hoop, you can use these nudge or jog buttons and jog it around. I don't want to do any of that, and I'm just going to touch the embroidery button. And we're ready to go. And on this screen, it tells me I need the U hoop right here. It has 11,809 stitches. It's going to take 24 minutes, and it has 17 color changes. Here's the little preview that this is the placement line for the batting. I can turn the trimmer on and off right here underneath. If you're using a real thick thread and you don't want it to cut the thread because it's going to leave a big knot, then you can turn your trimmer on and off with that scissor button. And then here is the needle plus minus button, and this is the button you use all the time if you have a boo-boo and you have to go back and restitch something, or you want to jump ahead some thread colors. So that this screen tells you the basics of everything that I also see on the Luminaire, that I saw on my Brother PE770, that I saw on my Quattro, etc. It's pretty much all the same. Now these designs where you're making these table runner blocks, these are great, especially if you're a beginner embroiderer, because you don't have to find center. I didn't need to find center on this stabilizer like using the dime hoop mat or anything, because the digitizer has already done that for me. It's going to stitch the placement line for the batting, and all I have to do is put batting over the placement line. So it's not like you need to make sure anything is lined up horizontally or vertically, because the digitizer's done that for you. These are really great if you're a beginner and you're not real sure about how to do all of your centering and your hoop and whatnot. I'm going to put in my hoop. I have to lift the little knob and slip it in. I have blue thread in and I'm ready to go. On this particular machine, I do have to put the foot down before my light will turn green so that I'm ready to go. And the buttons that are on here on the front of this machine, okay, this is the go button for pretty much all Brother machines have this. This is reverse. You only use this when you're sewing. This is a knot button, like if you want to make it just kind of do a tiny little knot. And you really don't use this when you're embroidering. Here's your needle up down. Here's a manual trim. Here's your foot up down. And then this is your speed control. This speed control only works for sewing modules. The speed of the embroidery is set in your settings, and that would need to be set before you put the design in. I'm just leaving it at the machine's default right now, and because it's fine, it's going to be able to stitch this out just fine. Another thing you're going to want is a firm surface available for trimming, because when you trim out your applique pieces around the tack down line, you want to make sure you've got something firm to put your hoop on so that your hoop doesn't pop out. I'm going to be doing this the old-fashioned way, as I call it, so I have not cut out any of my pieces ahead of time using the scan and cut, and I am going to be trimming around all of the applique fabrics. I just need to put my foot down, the light turns green, and it's going to do the placement line for the batting. Nice big batting piece here. I'm going to put that over it, and I'm going to put the foot down, and it's going to do the batting tack down. If you do not have the trimmer by George, my new favorite tool, then you need to remove the hoop from the machine and trim away all of this excess batting. But I have that tool, so I don't need to do that. I'm going to save time. I love it. I'm going to take my fabric, background fabric, and put it down and just make sure that all the tack down line on the batting is covered. I will trim away all of this excess down here below at the end. And here's the tack down line for the background fabric. Now I can tell we are going to do the placement line for the wings, so I need to do a thread color change to white. When I change my threads, I will cut the thread that just finished kind of about 2/3 of the way up and leave a nice good long tail, and then I'll take this tail and put it back up into that little spring, and then I'm going to take the white and figure out where that's at. There it is. I keep my tails tucked up in that little spring so all the threads stay up out of the way, and then I'll take the thread that I just finished with and tie them together. I kind of do a little twist, okay, and tie them together in a single knot. Goes through the loop. That's simple. Okay, so now I have a single knot right there. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little knot. All right, I'm just going to let that drop, and then I'm going to reach in front of the needle, and I'm going to pull the thread out of the hole, out of the eye of the needle. So now I'm just going to pull the thread through the machine until the knot has come through, because you can't pull a knot through the eye of the needle. So I'm going to hook that up and pull it over here to cut it. That way I don't have to thread the machine every time. And I'm going to use the auto thread. There, all done. Very, very simple to change threads. Reach in front of the needle, pull your existing thread that's in the eye of the needle out, and then pull your thread through, and then thread the machine. So here you can see we have the placement line for the wings ready to go. We're on stitch number 4, okay? And we're 3 minutes into a 24-minute run. Foot down and let it go. See, it just kind of pulled that little loop down through to the back, and it's perfect. Now, if you have a dark background like I do here, and you're going to be using white fabric, there's a pretty good chance you're going to be able to see the dark through the white fabric. Well, I don't want that. So there's 2 ways you can handle this. You can double up your fabric, or you can use a piece of white cutaway or tearaway, I prefer cutaway, under there, and then that's going to make it more opaque. I'm just going to fold up. I have a piece that's big enough really for 4 sets of wings, so I'm just going to fold up my fabric twice, make sure that my placement line is completely covered. Okay, put my foot down and let it tack it down. You need to remove the hoop from the machine, and then you want to use a good pair of curved embroidery scissors. These have a raised point, and they allow you to trim away applique without cutting into your bottom fabric. These are Gingers. Don't go cheap on these. They're not inexpensive, and one pair will last you for 10 years or more. So be kind to your hands and get yourself a good pair of these embroidery scissors. Cheaper ones will hurt your fingers. So you want to keep the hoop flat on your cutting surface and just trim as close to the tack down lines as you can. You notice I'm not pointing down into the fabric. You want to keep this part of the scissor as flat against the stabilizer and the fabric as you can, because that's going to prevent you from cutting something you don't want to. Just gently pull up. There we go. Usually the final satin stitch is about 3 millimeters wide, so you have a pretty good chance of covering up any little jagged edges, but try to get them as close as you can. The next stitch is the face and the hands placement stitch, so I'm going to do a thread color change. That was a jump thread that just happened, and this machine did cut the jump threads in between each one of those stitches. If your machine does not cut jump threads, then you're going to want to trim those right now. It did leave a little bit of a tail up here, and that's fine. I'm going to trim that. I am making mine look like the picture, so this is yours. If you want to change the skin tones on your runner, by all means do so. Make it yours. All right, it's time to trim away the applique fabric for the hands and the face. The next stitch is the placement line for her dress, so I'm going to do a thread color change back to white. I really don't have enough of her dress fabric in order to be able to double it up. So I'm going to put white cutaway stabilizer over where her dress is going to go of the fabric for the dress. Over this, she's got a little bird on here. I think that's kind of cool, that pattern. Let's see, how do I want that bird to look? I'm going to fussy stitch this. That'll be kind of neat to have a bird on her dress, won't it? Let's see, I'll bring this down a little bit. I don't guess it much matters. I'll put that there. Slip that cutaway underneath. This is a good trick too if you are doing snowmen, to use some white cutaway underneath the white fabric, and that will give you a nice pretty bright white snowman. Now I need to trim away the dress. The great use of stabilizer scraps. The next stitch is a placement line for her hair. Again, you can change the color to make it your own. Yeah, you can really see the blue through that. I'm going to double up my yellow. Using a batting scrap is a better option than wasting fabric. If you make a mistake on one of these and you discover that maybe you didn't cover, say, the end of her hair, you were short, don't feel like you have to cut that out. You can just simply take another piece of fabric, use your needle plus minus button to back up one spool thread. I'll show you that real quick. And then just put fabric over it and stitch it again. Or maybe double up your fabric so you don't have a dark spot. Embroidery applique is so forgiving. Let me show you how to do that real quick before we get started here, in case you have a boo-boo. Let's say I misplaced the fabric and I've got a little bit of her hair left that didn't get covered. How you fix that is you go into needle plus minus right here, and then you can back up 110 or 100 stitches, or you can go ahead 110 or 100 stitches, see with the plus and the minus. But here is a thread color minus and a thread color jump ahead. So I can hit the thread spool minus and tell it okay, and you'll notice up here we jump back to 29.69. If I hit ahead, we're at 32.16. See that? On color number 12, I'm going to hit the minus, and we go to color number 11, and we're on 29.69. I tell it okay, and there we are on the tack down again for the hair. That's how you can go back and stitch something again if you make a boo-boo. So I am going to hit needle plus minus, and I'm going to jump ahead one thread because that's where I want to be. I'm on number 12, and tell it okay. And you can see now we're ready to do the final satin stitch of the wing. I need to do a thread color change. When the final satin stitch begins, the digitizer will usually put a wide zigzag underneath the satin stitching, and that's to make sure that the edges of the fabric are all captured before the satin stitches start. So it's an underlay stitch for satin stitching. We finished the satin stitching on the wings, and now I'm doing a thread color change to do the satin stitching on the face and hands. Let's see, I gotta, where's the needle? And now the final satin stitching for the dress, that's going to take 7 minutes. Oh, that turned out just beautiful. I need to do a thread color change to yellow to outline her hair. Oh, that came out so pretty. And it's time for her halo. So I am going to switch to the metallic thread for that. If you've never tried Dimes, it's Designs and Machine Embroidery's King Star metallic thread, this stuff is just fabulous. I've never had it break or twist or get knotted up or anything. It's incredible. And it comes from Japan, and they have a whole bunch of colors. I got a bunch of it when I was at the Quilt Festival. And right now, this is November 18th, 2021, they have their Christmas quartet of the dime metallic threads on sale. It's for like less than $60. So you get gold, silver, red, and green. And so that's a real good deal to get 4 spools of this metallic thread for less than 60 bucks. That's a deal. Now, metallic threads don't like automatic needle threaders. That's just plain fact right there. So I'm going to cut that, and let's see here, I need to do this. I need my glasses is what I need. I can't see. I won't cut the camera off on this. I'll let you see how this metallic thread stitches. This thread is perfect to make angels. This thread is perfect to make angels out of freestanding lace. The Designs by JuJu freestanding lace angels. Perfect for that. I'm using an Organ 7511 needle. And you saw I had the standard bobbin, pre-wound bobbin, and I have not slowed the machine down at all. Look at that, not one problem. Beautiful. Oh, that's gorgeous. And I'm going to do my final thread color change for the background quilting. And I'm going to do that in the matching thread color as the background fabric so as not to take away from the design at all. You can do it in whatever color you like. Even that gold metallic might be kind of pretty, but I don't want to take away from the halo. All finished. I'm going to hit OK, and we're done. And remove the hoop from the machine. This is a little brother 3-in-1 screwdriver. Comes with machines. Some of them, not all of them. Very handy little tool. And this is how I use that new trimmer by George. This trimmer by George is awesome. It's got measuring marks on one side. It's got a metal lip edge that stands up on the other side. So you put the ruler upside down, and you mark the 1/2 inch mark on the bottom edge of the stitching, and you have to use the large 60mm rotary cutter. Okay. I'm going to do all 4 edges like this first. And then you take this metal edge and you fold the fabric back. You guys can tell I forgot to put the fusible woven on the back of this, and it did not matter. And I'm going to trim away. This is wonderful. And you just fold it over. So you have the batting and the stabilizer down. And the fabric is folded back. There is no chance of cutting your project wrong, because the metal edge is protecting the stitch line and the fabric above the stitch line. Just, you know, get it up in there nice and snug. Fold that over. Like I said in my last video, I'll never make another one of these type of designs without using this trimmer. So, we trimmed everything to a 1/2 inch seam allowance around the outside of the outer stitching line, and on the back, here's what the trimmer by George did. Got it right up close to that stitch line without cutting the fabric. Do you see? This is a lot easier to see than the one I did yesterday. Yep, it's gorgeous. Okay, you guys, that's it. I hope you had a lot of fun. I sure did. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. You brand new embroiderers, you got nothing to be afraid of. Just go ahead and tackle the design. I will put a link to the pattern and the kit below, the fabric kit below. And I'm gonna go do the next one on the multi-needle and let Spanky do all the work on the thread changes. We'll talk to you soon. Go sew something. Bye.